Hey, welcome to Creator Toolbox. This is a show brought to you by the ServiceNow Developer Program, where we demo new ServiceNow features for every developer's toolbox. That's why we call it Creator Toolbox. We are in the middle of our Utah release, so Pranav, if you could point to your shoulder, if you see that little logo, the other side, there, turn, no, oh, the other shoulder, there you go, that one. If you see that logo on the top right, that means we are in the Utah content release. So it's just an easy way for us to identify quickly for you all what kind of content we're giving you for this. If you want to see all the different things that we've been doing in Utah, go ahead and go to devlink.sn/Utah. And you'll see all the cool stuff that we've been doing for blogs, live streams, podcasts, all centered around the Utah release of ServiceNow. But before we jump into content today, let's do some introductions, and I'll have Pranav introduce himself.
Hey everyone, my name is Pranav and I'm a senior developer advocate here at ServiceNow. And I'm going to pass it to Earl.
Hi, everyone. I am also a developer advocate here at ServiceNow. I've been with the company for about 2 years, and before that, I was in higher ed doing a lot of ServiceNow development and senior engineering and all that kind of stuff. And without further ado, I would like to kick it off to our guest today, who will be leading us through the content, Kartik.
Thank you all. Thank you, Pranav. I hope you guys can see my screen.
There we go.
Awesome. Now, let's start with a very small story that I have. So, back in 2021, I was talking to Mike, who was the leading RPA COE in an organization. Now, Mike's job was to make sure to drive the RPA practice within the organization and automate various business processes with all the tools at his disposal. Now, Mike, having said that, Mike had his share of problems at it. So one of the things that Mike was having problem was to evangelize automations within the organization. Now everybody faces those problems, so that everybody in the organization knows that hey, there's an automation team and we need to provide them use cases so that they can build automations. Now getting these use cases are very inorganic in nature, so the teams have to go out and ask other teams to find out, hey, do you have a use case for us to solve? Now, once they start getting with all the troubles getting in all the use cases, it becomes difficult for them to go ahead and then prioritize all these use cases as well. Now, this is 2021 that I'm talking about, and back in 2020, everybody knows what hit all of us suddenly, right? So we were hit by COVID, and during this COVID period, there was a lot of hue and cry about automation at that point of time as well. And organizations went ahead for shopping and bought a ton of our automation tools. They got multiple RPA tools, they got multiple iPaaS tools, and now it became even more difficult for Mike to identify what automation should be performed on what kind of tool. And also at the same time, while I was discussing with Mike, he informed that, hey, I have various different tools. They are functioning in certain manner, but I don't have a single view to manage them as well. Now, all of these problems were, were there for Mike, and he was juggling to balance between the tools at his disposal, often messing up the balance between his work and life as well. Of course, we don't want that to happen. Now, in comes Automation Center, and now that's your management, automation management tool for people like Mike to successfully manage their automation practice. My name is Kartik Lanka, and I'm the Senior Principal Product Manager for Automation Center and RPA Hub as well. And I will be taking you through the capabilities of Automation Center that have been released in the Utah release. Let's go further. Now, what is Automation Center in the first place? Let's do a quick recap as to what the whole idea of Automation Center was. Now, Automation Center helps you automate and connect anything that is there in ServiceNow. Now, with ServiceNow's Automation Center, you can integrate with RPA Hub. Now, RPA Hub is primarily used in places where your underlying target applications do not provide API integrations. Then we went ahead and integrated Automation Center with Integration Hub. There's a very subtle difference between RPA Hub and Integration Hub. In Integration Hub, your target applications provide you with API integrations. Now, this opens up the gamut of target applications for you. You can have applications with APIs, without APIs, irrespective. You can go and connect with third party applications with tools coming out of the ServiceNow stable. In our roadmap as well, we have plans to integrate with DocIntel or Document Intelligence. Now, this product gives you the capabilities of extracting semi structured data from documents itself and provide you a very structured format so that you can go ahead and consume it. Going further, now apart from integrating with all the products coming out of the ServiceNow stable, Automation Center also provides the capability of integrating with third party tools as well. Remember, Mike had this problem of managing various different tools in various different dashboards and not having a single view to manage his automation. So that's the problem that Automation Center went ahead and solved for them, where you can now have multiple different RPA tools, multiple different iPaaS tools talking to ServiceNow's Automation Center and showing up data there so that you can take corrective measures or govern them and manage all of them at the same time. Now, let us quickly look at what we delivered in version 1, a very quick recap of what we delivered there. Now, in version 1, the platform provided dashboards to give you overview of what all was happening with your automations, with the robots, and other running assets from all various vendors. Also, at the same time, with all the various vendor data coming in, we could also showcase execution details to all the automation CUEs, and then they can go ahead and take instant action if there's some executions that are failing. This also gives you information and insights about which tools performance is better, and they can provide more investments towards those tools as well. Now, when I say insights, we also provide very actionable cards to you in version 1 itself, where you can go ahead and take actions and corrective actions to make sure your practice is running smoothly. Now, how are we getting this third party data into the ServiceNow instance? We provided you with generic ETL capabilities where you can now bring in third party RP data in a very simple JSON format and then push all the data into the ServiceNow instance. And then once the data shows up in the instance, the dashboards get populated on their own. Last but not the least, the most important feature that we had was goals and requests. Remember, Mike had this inorganic problem of reaching out to teams within the company to get use cases out of them. Now, we solve that problem by providing the capability to everybody within an organization to go ahead and raise an automation request from their own system, which organically trickles down to the automation COE team. And then you can look at the request, you can prioritize the request, and then you can take action on it as to which tool is the best tool to go ahead and perform the automation for this. Now, that was a lot of cool capabilities that we delivered in version 1, but we went ahead and increased the coolness quotient by a notch in version 2 as well. Now, in version 2, and trust me, this is the last slide that I have, and then we'll jump on to the demos. Now, in version 2, we came up with 5 different capabilities that were there. Now, in version 1, we only were focusing on RPA. In version 2, now we focus on iPaaS or integration hub capabilities as well. Now you can pick and choose which flows do you want to show up in Automation Center, and you want to manage them. Also, at the same time, we went ahead with a real-time integration with UiPath as a third-party vendor for RPA. Now we can now get data from their robots, from their processes, from their executions with respect to all the current operations that's happening on UiPath, and instantaneously in real time that information trickles into a automation center and data populates on your screens. Then we got in a very interesting feature called Spotlight. Now you have all these requests coming in, and you would want to prioritize these requests based on certain criteria. Maybe the importance of how much people are working in that particular team, or how much value or how much cost is being consumed for each execution. So various different criteria that are there. Based on these criteria, the system will automatically generate a Spotlight score. The higher the score, the higher value that you are going to drive by delivering automation to that kind of process. So we have gotten that spotlight feature in for Automation Center 2.0. Also, at the same time, we got in the recommendation actions. Now, as and when, imagine you being a user and you go ahead and submit an automation request from your side. The automation team, Mike's team, will look at your request and suddenly there's a pop-up that comes up by saying, hey, there are these additional or already automated use cases that are there, which are very similar to the ask that you're currently reviewing. That gives you a recommendation by saying, hey, there's already something there. Why don't you go and play with the existing automations, reduce the amount of time that you spend on this current request, and automate the process faster. It's a faster time value and faster time to market as well. And finally, we came up with the value dashboard, an additional dashboard from our side, which showcases the business value of customer of your automations to your senior management, and they can additionally go ahead and pump in additional investments so that the whole automation practice grows organically. So that's a lot of features that we are going to look at today. These are 5 different features that we are going to look at today. So let's just take a very quick breather, soak in the features that are there in front of you, and we'll head into the demo from here onwards.
Nice. That's a lot of stuff.
Of course. Now I'll just go ahead and open my ServiceNow instance. Just give me 1 second.
I'm always excited for anything Automation Center just because it seems to change dramatically every for anything automation engine. It's things change so rapidly now. It's so fun to watch, especially since ever since you appeared on the show last year, almost 1 year ago,
Yes.
since April. So it's cool to see all the changes since then too.
And thanks to you, Earl. The best part about that previous show was there's a lot of interest that got generated because of that show.
Yeah.
And a lot of good has happened post that. So I'll go ahead and click on the workspace for Automation Center. This is what you see on the screen right now. So these are the dashboards that are there, and we'll talk about where is all these information from these dashboards that are coming in. So let me just go back to the PPT and just give me 1 second. So I'll keep it like this. Right. So the first one that we're going to look at is tracking flows within automations. So for that, what we'll do is we'll first go and try to create a record within the system where I'm going to decide which flow do I want to be a part of the Automation Center tracking system. For that, what I'll go do is I'll go to Automation. I'll go ahead and open this record.
Thank you for
So
naming it something obvious.
yeah. So we had a bunch of other names also up our mind, but I think Tracker was the one that the team said it makes sense. So in the Tracker system, you can go and create a new record here, and then in the modal that you see on the screen, you will have an option to select which published flows do you want to go ahead and track within your system. But before I go ahead and do that, I'll open another record from my side to showcase that, hey, things actually work in a very interesting way. So for that, I'll go and open Flow Automations. So now Flow Automations is your primary table where you would need to have all ServiceNow flows to be a part of in case you want to go ahead and track them. Now, this is a CI table, and we leverage the CMDB CI capabilities from this particular table, and all your flows will come and show up here. Now, this particular table rolls up and extends to another table, which is CMDB CI Automation CI, CMDB Automation CI, and Automation CI has two, or rather, I'll say 3 different classes. One is flow automation, the second one is bot process, the third one is robots. So this is one of the classes that we're looking at right now. Now you see that there are already three flows that have been marked registered here in flow automation. Now we want to go and add a new one. Now, since it's a CI record, I cannot associate a flow directly to a CI record. So I will have to associate it via an intermediary table. So I use an automation tracker record here. So I'll go ahead and add a flow called Docker webhook subflow and go ahead and submit this. Now, as soon as do that, I should be seeing that flow here. Flow here. Let me just look around. Yep, there you go. Docker webhook subflow. It comes and shows up here in the automation tracker. Now let's go ahead and refresh this little boy and see whether it
Kartik, you
shows
can
up here.
actually, if you can click hide on that little, the hide button. Yeah, perfect. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Earl. So now you have the Docker webhook subflow here as well. Now with this available here, all the executions for this particular flow will go ahead and get tracked within the automation center system. And where do they get tracked? They get tracked in automation execution summary. So we have two tables, summary and import. I'll open both of them. So there is a specific schedule, which is a 24-hour schedule for any ServiceNow based records to get captured in automation execution summaries. So after every 24 hours, all of the executions will get accumulated with respect to specific logic and will show up in the execution summaries table. Now we show all the widgets and all the graphs that are there within Automation Center based on this very specific table itself. So if you go back to Automation Center and you go and look into what all is there, so you can see that all ServiceNow flows will show up in this particular graph, which is coming out of Automation Execution Summary itself. Also, at the same time, while I opened another record for ourselves, which is called Automation Execution Imports. Now, this is an intermediary table for all third parties tools, for example, Blue Prism, UiPath, or any other source that you have. You can push data in all the data into this table. And again, after every 24 hours, based on specific rules and accumulation of data, this data goes and gets filled into execution summary table as well. So that's how these two primary tables work within ServiceNow. Now, as I said, once you have your flows in place, you can see your flows information on these graphs here, and you can see execution of flows in the execution summary table, execution tab as well. Now, going forward, let's look at what is the other capability that we have. We have webhooks integration with UiPath. Now, this is a very interesting capability that we got in this time. Previously, we used to use endpoint APIs, which we opened up within ServiceNow, so that customers can go and use a specific JSON format to go and start pushing data into execution imports table. Now, that's not a real-time information that's coming in, so we went ahead and created a webhook capability for UiPath. But for that, first, the customer would need to go into plugins and install the UiPath spoke. Let's just go into plugins. Sometimes this plugins page takes time.
I know. Right when you clicked on plugins live, I was like, oh, we're playing it risky. Okay, I like it.
There you go. So you can say UiPath. You have this spoke there. So I've already installed it on my system, but you can go ahead and install this particular spoke on your system. Now, once you have installed UiPath within your system navigator, you will see two specific records. You will see. Let's go ahead and click UiPath. You will see UiPath webhook registries, and you'll see UiPath webhook routing policies. So first, we need to go and register a webhook between a ServiceNow instance and UiPath as well. So meanwhile, just give me a second. If I can get you an image of UiPath, how do I get out of this? Just give me 1 second.
do have a
All right.
question.
So
Um, oh,
yes, please.
we do have a question. So you were showing automation trackers earlier and adding it to Automation
Yes.
Center. We had a question that are you able to add something into Automation Center or set it to be tracked from Flow Designer, or is it always through Automation Center?
So these are all the flows that are there within ServiceNow. So maybe I got. Can you repeat the question again, or maybe you can
Are you
ask
able
the
to
question?
set a automation tracker via when you're in Flow Designer, or do you do it always through that table and how you
You
showed
always
it?
do that. You always do that through this table itself.
Okay,
So you have separate tables for Flow Designer. These are tables which are scoped within Automation Center scope app. So
okay,
the scope
thank
of
you.
this particular tracker is Automation Center. All right, just give me 1 second. I'll just pull up, pull this up as well, and keep this handy. And then we'll go to the instance from our side. Automation. There you go. So in UiPath, we went ahead and opened up UiPath webhook registries, and we can go and click on new here to create a new registry between ServiceNow instance and UiPath. I can go and give a name here. I'll say create a toolbox demo, and I can go and save this right now. Now, as soon as I save this, I get a UI action on top which says generate callback URL and secret. I'll just go and click on this, and I will get a callback URL from my side, and I'll go and get a secret here. Now I have an image of UiPath. I cannot show the actual instance to you. So within UiPath, when you go into a tenant and click on the webhooks option and you want to create a new webhook, you can give it a name, give the URL, the same URL that we got here, the callback URL, and give the secret here, the same secret we got here, and that should do the trick for you. Now, additionally, there is an option called select individual events. As of now, we support processes, robots, and jobs out of service, out of UiPath. We are not supporting queues as of now, but that's on the roadmap. So you would want to go ahead and click on the second option and select those three assets only, right? So that's how you can go and set up a webhook between UiPath and ServiceNow. And then, as we were discussing, you would want to go and take a quick look at the routing policies as well. Now, these routing policies basically tell us that once some data comes into the system, what is the next action that you would want to take? So from Automation Center, we ship all of these routing policies from our side and mark them as active true. So I'll just open up one such policy. Now this is a robot policy. Any CRUD operation on the robot that has happened with respect to modification, with respect to creation, or with respect to deletion, this particular uh, record will get triggered, and from here it will go and launch a subflow from here. So you have flow inputs, and you can go and it goes ahead and launch a subflow from there. So let me open up another one for you. Process. So this will go ahead and trigger your subflows from here and sort. And basically what it'll do is it'll map the fields that are coming in from UiPath, map the fields to ServiceNow, automation tracker table, and go ahead and push all the data into the automation tracker table. Sorry, my mistake, not the tracker table, automation executions import table. It will go ahead and push all the data into the executions import table. So that's what UiPath's integration is, what we have done from our side. And then we went ahead and did integrations with Spotlight. Now for Spotlight, just give me a second. Let's get back to the instance. Now for Spotlight, again, we need to download a plugin from our side. Now let's see where the plugins are. Yeah. So we need to go ahead and download a plugin from our side. I'll say Spotlight. And this is the first plugin. This is a performance analytics Spotlight plugin. It's a paid plugin, but you can try it on your PDIs if you have, and you can go and install it and start working on the Spotlight itself. Now, how does this particular chap works? So once you go ahead and install it on the system, you can go ahead and first go to Automation Center properties and enable Spotlight from your side. Automation Center properties here, and just open the properties. And the first property says this property value determines whether the system would use Spotlight score for determining automation request rank. It comes as default no, but you can go ahead and mark it as yes, and it is, and you can use Spotlight feature within your system itself. Now, how does that Spotlight feature basically go ahead and work? We can go ahead and open up something called as Spotlight groups. We go and open Spotlight groups. You will see that there's a group for automation request. Let me go and open this particular group. Within this request, within this particular group that we have a Spotlight request for various different criteria that is there. For example, if I say the actual cost per run is high, which basically means if it's more than 5,000, then give it a weightage of 500. If it is low or if it is between 1 and 2,500, give it a weightage of 30. Similarly, if the manual steps are high, give it a weightage of 100. If the priority is critical, give it a weightage of 1500. This is all with respect to your automation request form. All these fields are there in your automation request form. Depends on what data you're entering in that field. The weightage is added upon and eventually it shows up in the Spotlight score for you. You can go and modify these weightages from your side. You can just directly go and open any of these criteria and then go ahead and modify the weightage or the criteria itself if you want. Also, at the same time, if you want to disable the criteria, you can just go ahead and mark this weight as 0. Anything that has been shipped from our side, if you go ahead and mark it as 0, you can disable it. You also have the delete button, but I would not recommend you to go ahead and delete any criteria that are there. Otherwise, it becomes difficult to manage later on. So once you have gone ahead and created a Spotlight for yourself, I will just go to an automation request from my side and show you how it shows up. Let's say automation, all automation requests. I'll open up the very first automation request from my side. Now there's a bunch of information that is already there in this particular request. If I go down, it will say the score is 1200. That's an interesting score. Now, if I go ahead and change this value from my side from priority 4 to say high criticality, just go ahead and save it. Let's see if the score changes as well. Oh, the score has not changed, but technically the score should go ahead and change. Uh, it's in planned state, so let's move it in progress. Interesting. Sometimes my own systems don't work for me, but but in reality, the scores change based on what the priority of what you have changed within the system itself, and then based on that score, you can determine as to whether you would want to go ahead and automate that particular process or not. Now you can see information with respect to score in your overview dashboard as well. You can just go ahead and sort it by score and say this gives a very easy view to your automation COEs to go ahead and identify which is the first process that you would want to go ahead and automate from your side. So that's the Spotlight capability of the platform where you can see the scores and you can determine and prioritize your automation intake. Now, next capability that we have is the recommended actions. Now, for recommended actions as well, you will have to go ahead into plugins and download a very specific plugin. Let's go to the plugin section. Okay, recommended.
I
Here
like
you go.
one thing I'm noticing is that everything that you're showing us is attached to a plugin. So all of this stuff is as you need as you want instead of being feeling like you have to configure all of these things at once. But no, it's actually the things that you need is what you can pull in at a time.
Absolutely, Earl. And a lot of these capabilities like Spotlight and recommended actions, all of these are platform capabilities that we are leveraging, which actually is the power of service now. So as and when, depending upon your need that you mentioned, then you can go ahead and install those plugins for yourself. All right. So let's go and look at what recommendation actions can do for you. So once the plugin is in place, let me go back and see how I can go ahead and set up a recommendation. So I'll go to something called a Similarity Solutions. And here I have provided similarity capabilities for automation requests and automation attributes table. Now, within Automation Center, we use two kinds of capabilities to provide recommendations to our customers. One is a string match, where for automation request records, we do a string match with process name, process description, and applications used. And for automation attributes, we use automation name, automation description, and source name as well. So, mind you, there needs to be at least a minimum of 10 records in each of these tables that you would want to run the ML model for. Now, once there are at least 10 records for one time and only one time only. For the first time, you would have to go and click on this big button on the top right corner called update and retrain. Now, once you go and update and retrain only for once, periodically, as and when more requests and more data gets into the system, it automatically updates and retrains itself. But to go ahead and use the recommendation actions capability on ServiceNow, again, you have to go to a quick little system property and enable it from your side. So you says properties. Yes. I'll just quickly go to Automation Center. And you have this particular recommended action that is this system property that is there, which is marked value as true. This is true for now, but by default we push it across by false. You can go ahead and mark it as true, install the plugin, set up a similarity for yourself, and then you can use recommendation actions within your system itself. And finally, we have the value dashboard capability. Now, coming back to the ServiceNow instance, in the V1 version, we only had overview and execution tabs. Now we have the value tab as well. Now, every request that you raise can be associated to specific goal. Now, imagine you are a VP within your organization and your senior VP has provided you a goal by saying, hey, for the finance organization, I would want to reduce the amount of money that I'm pushing in by 10%. Or maybe they say, be very brutal about it and say, I want to reduce maybe around 10% of workforce within my organization. That's the goal that somebody can have. Now, in order to achieve those goals, people would have to go ahead and create automations, create requests by saying, hey, for to reduce 10% capacity in my finance department, maybe in an AP process, accounts payable process, I would want to automate this process so that I reduce the number of people working in that process, which is in line with my goal. I raise a request which is associated to the goal, and I can go ahead and then perform automations on it. So this value dashboard goes ahead and shows you information pertaining to your goals, which says that there are three pending goals, which has three pending requests, which has got an expected cost saving in dollars as well. It gives you information pertaining to how many goals are in work in progress, how many goals have been achieved, and how many have not been achieved. Now, achieved and not achieved is with respect to the end time of your goal, because if somebody sets a goal for you by saying, I want to reduce 10% capacity within my department, they would also mention by what time do they want this goal to be achieved. Everybody gives a SMART goal in which T is time. So, this is how you can go and identify whether your goals are achieved or not achieved. Also, at the same time, in this, we leverage the power widgets from our side with respect to all active automations within the system, which gives you information with respect to how much cost is saved, how much time is saved, how many total automations have been deployed, and what is the success rate of your automations as well. Additionally, we have various different graphs based on departments, and you also get information with respect to your future automations as to those requests which have not been published but are in new state or in planned state. How many various departments requests are in? What is the total time saving or cost savings that you can achieve in these departmental automation requests that are coming in? And you can probably go ahead and address them as well. Whew. So that's the power of ServiceNow's automation center. So I'll take a pause here. There's a bunch of things coming in on my screen. So I'll take a pause here. I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll take up any questions.
We had one question, especially when we were talking about how a lot of these features are plugin based. What
Okay.
is there going to be a adoption blueprint available for Automation Center 2.0? And or if you have a question on any individual plugin or an overview or a recommended set list of ways to implement Automation Center, where can we find those materials?
So we do publish docs for Automation Center. Along with the Utah release, you will have the documentation also published on the ServiceNow sites. You can go ahead and look at the docs, and it will give you a clear step guidance as to which plugin to install and for what purpose that plugin is there. All the steps that I have shown you today, all the steps are clearly demarcated within the docs itself. So and more. I've just given you a very high level information, but docs are even more comprehensive in nature.
And I think I want to piggyback on what you just said too, especially in the idea of high level. One of the things that I always tell people about Automation Center and RPA and all the different robotic processes that we are starting to have in ServiceNow is that it's easy for us developers to remember RPA and the individual things that we're going to be developing, but it's things like Automation Center that sells the products to our implementers and to our stakeholders and to our executive and C-level people to actually throw their weight and resources and money behind these kind of things. And so these high level visualizations are important because they reveal the value of the things that us as developers and the engineers creating all the processes and stuff like that, uh, that it's worth it. And Automation Center is something that you all keep adding on to just so that we can keep showing that value for such a big thing that is exciting to implement, because these are all automation stuff that ServiceNow does really well with integrating with everything else and showing value even just per department and how many things are running and how all those, and tracking things automatically and revealing things that are need to be seen. Those are all things that demonstrate the value of the thing, of the technical stuff. And so it's easy to, I used to teach all of my student developers that engineering and developing cool things, it's only half the job. The other half is selling your product. And so Automation Center is helping us do that part of it.
Absolutely, yes, sir. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you for all that. It was a good, you went through all of it. There was a lot of stuff too. Did Pranav, did you have any questions or comments, or did you want to add anything onto that?
No, I think it was a great session. Like when I was working on the Tech Now deck, right? So a lot of things came up, right? And the way you explain it, it was like in simple language. Thanks for that. I think everyone who is watching the stream will appreciate it. Thank you, Kartik, for it.
Thank you, Pranav. Thank you very much for that.
Awesome. Well, if you do want to see other things about Automation Center, there are other things going on within the Utah release. Go ahead and go to devlink.sn/Utah to see anything Automation Engine that we're doing for this release. You can even go to this YouTube channel and search for the past Creator Toolbox that Kartik was on when he demoed RPA for the first time for all of us, and it was a very popular video. So go ahead and check that out. And then if you have any questions or if you have any things that come up, you can find us on this YouTube channel. Actually, go ahead and comment, and we see those comments and we can answer them there. Other than that, thank you for joining us. For everybody that is tuning in around the world, thank you for watching. And if you're watching this after the fact, we still watch the comments and we still can be engaging with that. You can find all of us on LinkedIn. You can find us all of us on social media and all of that. Thank you. And we hope you have a good morning or a good night wherever you are. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.